mean you had a choice in death? We've been talking about world walking, death, reincarnation, the weird gates, the underworld, all of that kind of stuff, and this is gonna fit in with that whole series. Today we're gonna talk about characters in the Maasverse who have died and seemingly had a choice in death. Now this is going to have Maasverse spoilers, so if you have not read the entirety of the Maasverse, you're going to stop now. That includes all of the Crescent City series, all of the ACOTAR series, and all of the Throne of Glass series. We're going to start with Aelin and Kingdom of Ash, because Aelin does make a choice in Kingdom of Ash to follow the Weird Gates, the map that Rowan left her home. She makes the choice to follow them. She could have stayed in the in-between when she destroyed the lock and destroyed the God Realm. She could have stayed there. She could have allowed herself to die, but she made the choice as she's destroying the lock. She's willing it to close, to be destroyed, but she says that she's not going to give up that last bit of herself. She willed it to close as she offered over her power, but not that last bit of self. And, she's thinking about, a map poem, a map inked in the words of universes would lead the way, and more and more and more, but not all. She would not give it up, her innermost self. She would not surrender. They would not take this lingering kernel of her. She would not yield it. So she chooses to stay alive and follow this map home. And she has some help along the way. Rowan etched this map into her as a tattoo. Rhysand slows her down. So she has help, but she had to make the choice to allow herself to live. And then she falls from the in-between, and when she's falling through worlds, it's essentially her soul. Her body is on the ground in front of Rowan, right? So her and Dorian, when they went to the in-between, it was like their souls, I guess. And so her soul basically falls back to her body. And this is pretty much akin to the drop. There's lots of other creators who have talked about this being the drop, one of them being Bree, and I will tag her in the caption. But this is essentially the drop. And when Aelin completes this, so she makes this choice to go back to Rowan and to live, and she is changed afterwards. She's changed. She is no longer able to shift between being Fae and her human mortal body. She is now all Fae. So she dies, essentially, makes a choice to live, and comes back as something a little bit different than what she was before. Then moving on to the ACOTAR series, we have Feyre and ACOTAR, and she dies. She's killed by Amarantha under the mountain, and she's brought back by the 7 High Lords. But she also, we see her in ACOTAR make the choice to follow this golden thread, to come back. She makes that choice, and she even tells us in A Court of Mist and Fury, when she's talking to the Bone Carver, that there was a choice in death. She could have chosen to stay and fade away or return to her body, and she chose to return to her body. She also returns as something different than what she was. She died a human, and now she is Fae. So that's one thing. And then we have Nesta and Elaine, because they both also make the choice to live when they're dunked into the cauldron. So when they're put into the cauldron, they die, right? They're unalived, but they choose to come back, and we know this because the King of Hybern tells us this. There are risks, of course. The transition can be difficult, but a strong-willed individual could survive. And then even on the next page, the king says, sold out or saved from the shackles of mortal death. Ianthe suggested they were both strong-willed women, like their sister. No doubt they'll survive, and prove to our queens it can be done, if one has the strength. And we know both Elaine and Nesta survived. They were both strong-willed like Feyre. And that's a whole nother conversation I'd like to have with you guys. But anywho, so we can presume they made the choice. We know that Nesta did, because Nesta also made the choice to take more from the cauldron, right? So again, we have 2 more characters who had a choice in death, and they came back as something different. They both come back as Fae. In keeping with the ACOTAR series, now we get to A Court of Wings and Ruin, we get to Akawar, and we're going to look at Rhys and Amren, because they both also die when, dealing with the cauldron, right? And Feyre has the High Lords give Rhys a kernel of their power to bring him back the way that they brought her back, and we are told that it doesn't work quite the same with him because he's already like Fae or High Lord or whatever compared to Feyre, who is human, right? But whatever, they do it. Rhys comes back. I do want to note here that Rhys, as far as we're aware, is not different. He comes back and he says, "You lot will be pleased to know my power remains my own. No thieving here." So Rhys dies, is brought back, but he's not different. So far, he's the only one who is unchanged as far as we know after dying and being brought back. And then he brought Amren back with him. He tells them, you know, hey, get Amren out of the cauldron before she catches a cold. So they go and they pull her out and they're like, how? And Amren is also different. And Rhys says she was there when the cauldron was sealing, going wherever we go. So I reached out a hand to see if she might want to come back. So Amren made a choice to come back. She died and made a choice to come back, and now she is different. She's just high fae now. And you know, Rhys, it doesn't really say whether or not Rhys made a choice, at least not that I can find, but presumably everybody else did, so presumably he did. But he's also the only one who has come back unchanged, allegedly. So now we're going to look at Bryce in Crescent City 1 when she makes the drop. And, you know, this also, I mentioned it about Aelin, but not Feyre. I know a lot of people also talk about Feyre and how what happened to her under the mountain was her making the drop. Again, I know Bree has talked about that, and she will be tagged in the captions. So Bryce, she uses the gates to make the drop. And, you know, Hunt is dead or dying. Bryce isn't quite sure. She tried to heal him or save him with some first light, but she's not quite sure if it worked. She makes the drop, and, you know, Danica's there with her. It's this whole thing, and Bryce makes a choice to return. She debates on staying with Danica, and Danica's like, yo, dude, you gotta go back. She tells Danica she's scared. Danica says, that's the point, Bryce, of life, blah, blah, blah. Bryce isn't sure she can make it back up, and Danica's like, just try, you know, I'm with you. She begins the ascent from wherever she is at back to her body, because if you notice in all of these instances, their body is still present in one realm, and their soul, life force, whatever is elsewhere, somewhere else, in a different seeming realm, in the in-between. Like Feyre saw darkness, like they're somewhere else, and they return to their body. So they're making the choice to return to their body or not. I want to make that clear because I haven't really elaborated on that, but they're making the choice to return to their body. So Bryce does. She makes the choice, and she makes the ascent, and she returns to her body, and Bryce comes back a little bit different, which that's kind of the gist of the drop in Crescent City, right? You do the drop and you secure being immortal, because that's how the Asteri are tricking them into giving them their first light. That's just kind of how it works here. But Bryce does come back, and she is a little bit different. She also has like more power, or her power works a little differently than it did before. But yeah, so those are a handful of characters that we have seen die, make a choice to return to their bodies. Okay, they're dead. Their soul, life force, whatever, is separate from their bodies. They make the choice to return to their body, and in all of the cases except for one, they return different. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Do we think that Rhysand is really unchanged? And if he is unchanged, why would that be? Would that be because of his heritage? I don't know. You guys tell me, what do you think about all of this? And stay tuned. We're going to keep diving into the Maasverse, reincarnation, death, world walking, all of that. I don't only talk about the Maasverse. I'm a mood reader, and I talk about all sorts of books. I talk about the Red Rising Saga, the Empyrean series, book reviews, book recs, whatever is on my little bookish heart at the moment. We're going to chat about it. So make sure to give me a follow.